Hello, my name is Sally Pinto, and I'm the Program Director for the Yonkers NORC, Neighborhood Naturally Occurring Retirement Community. We serve seniors 60 plus in Northeast Yonkers. We are under the auspices of WJCS and the Yonkers Office for the Aging. We also have a resource specialist and a nurse on staff. We conduct virtual programming in partnership with the Yonkers Public Library on a daily basis. Enjoy the program.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Like Sally and Z mentioned, I work for Feeding Westchester, and I teach a program called Just Say Yes to Fruits and Vegetables. If you haven't joined before, we go through all different topics, from discussing physical topics related to nutrition, I should say. Today, we're going to be talking about storing fruits and vegetables. Other times we have spoken about fiber. We've spoken about the benefits of fruits and vegetables themselves. We talk about the nutrition facts label, so all different topics. And then we prepare a recipe demonstration. And today we're going to be preparing a salad with pears and strawberries. It's actually called a Tatsoi salad with pears and strawberries. We are going to be actually using spinach, which is a great substitution for tatsoi. Tatsoi you can also find in a grocery store. It would also be known as spinach mustard, spoon mustard, or rosette bok choy. I looked for this item today. I did not find it, so spinach is an excellent substitute. However, if you do ever come across tatsoi and want to try it, maybe at a mobile food distribution, at a farmer's market, whatever the case may be, don't veer away from it. Give it a try. Remember this recipe and, give it a whirl. So with that being said, like I mentioned, we'll be speaking about storing fruits and vegetables today. Everyone remember, this is a safe learning environment, so I'm going to call out and ask questions. Nobody will be called on, so it's always voiced by choice in here. And please stick around until the end. I love having everybody here. And I love hearing from you. So if you're not comfortable calling out, which you're more than welcome to use your voice, you can always use the chat box. I'll be consistently looking down, checking the chat box to see if anybody is participating that way. So can anybody tell me, and I'm not sure if you received the handouts. I know that Sally sent out the handouts for certain individuals, but if you do have them in front of you, please feel free to take it right from the handout. That's okay. You're not cheating. You're just reiterating what you see on that handout in front of you. But in either case, please share if you know some of the benefits of properly storing fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables in general, and especially leafy greens, since I really want to highlight leafy greens today. Please share any benefits that you know about properly storing this produce. So if you're not sure, I'm sure you do have an idea, but don't be embarrassed here. No answer is wrong. So I just want to highlight that properly storing produce keeps the produce much longer, it'll taste better, and it reduces waste. So it'll reduce the perishability if you do store it properly. So I want to go into a discussion about the storage of leafy greens. Can anybody identify what some of your favorite leafy greens are, whether you go to the grocery store or the farmer's market? So Z says lettuce. Lettuce is excellent. It's hydrating. It has nutrients. It's crispy. and it's full of fiber. So absolutely. Broccoli, sure, absolutely. Okay, so I want to highlight that there's different types of greens. There's lettuce greens, greens with stems, and herbs. How is it that you would choose your freshest greens and herbs? Would anybody like to share how you would go about choosing your freshest greens and herbs? Oh, Chris S. wrote asparagus. Absolutely. That's a delicious veggie. Celery. Yeah, but when you're looking at your different leafy greens, absolutely spinach. When you're looking to choose your different leafy greens, what are you looking for? What are you looking to see before you purchase that item? So you're looking to see that your greens have crisp, bright green leaves. Yep, they're not wilted. There's no yellow or brown at the end of the stems. These are all really important factors to consider before you take home your leafy greens. Can anybody share how you usually, Z shared something else? Exactly, Z. So if there is yellow or brown, we can cut it off as long as the rest of it. And that's a great way of reducing food waste, especially maybe if you're purchasing the item and you don't want to purchase something that has yellow or brown, but if you have it at home and for some reason it got some yellow or brown at the tips, you can just cut it off. You wouldn't want to waste that item if you can. Chris S. wrote that you can compost it. Absolutely. Great. So can anybody share how they would store their produce, their leafy greens, so that these leafy greens would stay fresh longer? Anybody? Feel free to call out. That's totally fine.
I would put them in water, like a jar. I do that with green onions.
Okay. So I would definitely suggest putting unwashed greens in the refrigerator and keeping in mind different storage requirements for each type of green. So for lettuce and salad greens, we'd want to place them in a plastic bag with a dry paper towel and seal it. This would help to preserve these lettuce and salad greens. As for greens with stems, you want to chop off the end of the stem and wrap just the end in a damp paper towel and then again seal it in a plastic bag. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Is this a practice that anybody uses at home? So for herbs, you wouldn't want to rinse them. You would want to wrap the entire bunch in a slightly damp paper towel, and that would help to preserve those herbs. So something like cilantro or parsley, oregano, these different herbs, basil, those are examples of herbs that we'd want to wrap the entire bunch in a slightly damp paper towel. So I hope that you received this leafy greens handout so that you can store, keep it on your, maybe like put it right on your refrigerator so that you can remember these different tactics to keep your leafy greens fresh longer. And also with those herbs, you want to wrap them in a barely damp paper towel, and you can, with those, you can also place them in a plastic bag and seal them as well. So for all of the leafy greens, that is what we want to do. We want to place them in the plastic bag and seal them. Okay. So as for other produce, what if you received a lot of produce and you know that you're not going to get through it before it perishes? Even if you do keep it somewhere that it would be stored the longest, what else can we do with our produce? Does anybody have any ideas so that we can maintain its life? So in case you're out of ideas, something that you can do is freeze your fruits and vegetables. So depending on the fruit or vegetable is the method that we would use to freeze them. So for certain ones, and I don't know if you received this handout, but take a look in your email. For certain produce, like berries, cherries, corn, grapes, peaches, plums, peeled melon, and winter squash, you'd first want to remove any pits that there might be, and you put them in the freezer right away. So you'd want to wash all the fruits and vegetables, store all of them in a container with a tight lid, and of course, label it with the date when you froze it, and it'll keep for 6 months. As for the corn, you'd want to take it off the cob before freezing it. But for certain other vegetables, you may want to blanch them or actually cook them before freezing them so that they'll have the best taste and texture when you go to utilize them. So for instance, things like before freezing, things like artichokes, asparagus, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, celery, and there's a slew of other items on this list, and I know that this list is available to you. You'd want to blanch these before freezing them. Does anybody know how you go about blanching these different produce items? So you just boil enough water to cover all the produce in the pot. Yep, zero, put it in boiling water, in and out, exactly. It's just like a quick, so you clean the produce, you chop it into even-sized pieces, you place the produce in boiling water for 1 to 5 minutes and boil it until it's tender. And then you rinse it under cold water until it's cool, strain it, and then seal it in a container and freeze it. Exactly. So 30 seconds, whatever it takes to get it just nice and tender, and then you freeze it. But for other items like apples, beets, beans, legumes, potatoes, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, pumpkin, radishes, winter squash, you'd want to actually fully cook these items before freezing them. So you'd want to either bake them, roast them, saute them, boil them, steam them, or poach them. So you'd want to fully cook these items before freezing them for the best taste and texture for when you do go to use them. Anyone have anything that they want to add? Any other tips that you can share? Oh, Z wrote, you can blend them too. Sure, absolutely. And that actually reminds me of a tip I've seen several times, which would be you can actually blend them even into what you'd want in a smoothie and put them, pour it into like ice cube trays. And actually, when you're ready to use it, you just put it into the blender with whatever else, maybe yogurt or whatever the case may be. And that way you have it to utilize with the best flavor when you need it. so you don't have to go through all those steps when the time comes. And also, if you know that you have this produce that you're not going to get through, that way you make the most use of it. So Chris S wrote that you can put frozen chunks over ice cream or yogurt. Absolutely, especially if it's like frozen fruit that we did. Something that I often mention that I love to do is take frozen berries and put it right into a plain yogurt and let it sort of just melt into the yogurt, and it just gives that plain yogurt so much flavor without adding any sweeteners to it. Just the natural sweetness of the berries and the juices coming out from those berries into the yogurt. So absolutely. Z wrote celery with hummus is nice. Speaking of leafy greens, absolutely. I love these kind of suggestions, and it's just good to remind each other. Maybe there are things that we know already or that we've tried already, but we kind of forget in between. And it's good to have these conversations so that we remind each other of the different things that we can be eating, because we don't always remember these different healthy snacks. So I want to discuss some other ways that we can store our fruits and vegetables to keep them fresh, especially since we are moving into a season with an abundance of fruits and vegetables that are available. And then, of course, we live in a climate where we'll go back into a cooler season where we may not have as much access to this variety of fruits and vegetables. So keeping that in mind, preparing for maybe the colder season by freezing produce that we can easily access at this, during the warmer months. So like we mentioned before, by storing fruits and vegetables in their proper place, they'll stay fresh longer, they'll taste better, and they'll have more health benefits. So certain things that you should store in a dark, dry place. Does anybody have any ideas of what you should store in a dark, dry place? Yep, zero potatoes, absolutely. So potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squash, onions, garlic. Can anybody take a guess of how long these things can last stored in a dark, dry place? So 1 to 3 months. So that's a really nice long period of time. As long as they're stored properly, they can last a really long time. Can anybody give any ideas of what would be best? Yep, root vegetables, absolutely. In general, root vegetables are what we should store in a dark, dry place. What about things that we should let ripen on the counter and then eat or move to the refrigerator? Any ideas? So apples, cherries, grapes, melons, plums, peaches, pears, tomatoes. Not on this list would be, I know for sure, avocados are something we should definitely always let ripen at room temperature. And as soon as you notice that they start to get slightly soft, you want to either eat it or move it to the refrigerator so that it maintains its life a lot longer. And foods like these can actually be kept fresh in the refrigerator for up to an extra 10 days if you move them to the refrigerator at the right time, that they're ripe but not overripe. And then in general, certain items should always be stored in the refrigerator, especially especially cut fruit and washed fruit. So whole uncut fruit and vegetables can stay fresh uncovered for 3 to 14 days in the refrigerator. How long does cut fruit last? Z asks. So it depends on the fruit itself, but I would say up to 2 days. But it depends on the fruit itself. And so berries may not have as long of a life once they're cut, and they should absolutely, of course, be refrigerated if they're not utilized. How do you tell if the fruit has gone bad? Gabby asks. So of course you'll see rot, it'll get a little too soft, there'll be rot spots. Things like that will tell you if the fruit has gone bad. But there, of course, is the difference between rot and just ripe. And zero, can you cut out the rot spots? Absolutely, as long as you take away the entire area that is rotten. Absolutely, I wouldn't ever want anybody to throw away any food, that as long as you can get rid of those rot spots and it's not touching any of the area that we're actually going to eat. Philip says, doesn't it get a fermented kind of smell? Yeah, you can definitely say that. If it's overripe, then yeah, absolutely starts to get a rotten smell. Absolutely. So certain items that we should always keep in the refrigerator, does anybody have ideas? So things like asparagus, berries, beets, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, zucchini, peppers, all of the mushrooms, they should be actually kept in a paper bag. All of these items should always be kept in the refrigerator. Any other questions before we start preparing the recipe? So I really love the resources that the handouts that I sent over today, and please check them out. Keep them on your fridge as reminders. So like I said, we're going to be preparing a salad today with pears and strawberries, and we're using spinach in place of tatsoi. So the recipe says to use 2 tablespoons of vinegar. So it says to make the dressing in a small bowl. Combine the vinegar, oil, apple juice, and honey. So I'm just actually I'm not going to put it in a separate bowl. I'm actually just going to put it into my bowl first, and then I'll add in my spinach, my pears, and my strawberries. Why do more dishes? It's not necessary. So in the bowl, I'm going to combine my vinegar, my oil, and my honey. Or you can use sugar if you don't have honey on hand. So it says to use 2 tablespoons of vinegar. So I have my balsamic vinegar, but whatever vinegar you have on hand. Can anyone, thinking about the flavors of the salad, can anyone think of any other leafy greens that might taste really delicious with this salad? So yeah, I'm not sure if that comment about the cucumbers was about the salad, but I think that adding cucumbers to the salad would be excellent. But in terms of in place of or in addition to the spinach or the tatsoi, I would love to see how something like arugula would taste in this salad. So I have olive oil here. You can use whichever oil you have on hand. So it says to use 2 tablespoons. And then it says to use 1 tablespoon of honey or sugar. I have my honey right here. I'm actually, for the purpose of time, since it takes a little while to squeeze out the honey, I'm going to use the sugar today. So I'm going to use a little less sugar. I don't think it needs a full tablespoon. I've often found in other recipes when it says to add sugar, I never really needed to add sugar, that the recipe really just tastes just as delicious without the added sugar in it. So I'm just using 1 teaspoon. Just for a little bit of extra flavor. Gabby wrote, shredded carrots would be a great addition. Absolutely, I completely agree. What if we wanted to make the salad part of a complete meal? What could we add to it? So, okay, so the next thing, so it says, make the dressing, combine the vinegar, the oil, and the honey. You don't have to use the apple juice. So I'm not adding the apple juice. And so I'm just going to take it and mix it up. And then it says add the tatsoi or the spinach, the pears, and the strawberries. So it says to use 4 cups of, I'm going to be using 4 cups of the spinach. So just so you can see, just going to use a dry measuring cup to measure out 4 cups of spinach and then add it right in. It doesn't have to be exact. 2. It's really roughly like a handful would be a cup. And that's my 4th cup. Okay, so I'm just mixing it so it gets the right flavor. And then I'll be cutting up my pears and my strawberries. So it says to slice the pears and slice the strawberries. And I actually looked up before what the equivalent to a cup of strawberries would be. And I'd seen about 8 strawberries, 8 large strawberries would be the equivalent to 1 cup of strawberries. So I have my 8 strawberries here. I'm just going to be cutting away the stems and then slicing the strawberries nice, and I'll cut them in half and then I'll lay them on their flat side and slice it nice and thin. I'll just cut a couple just so you don't have to watch me cut up 8 strawberries, and just adding them right in. So again, can anyone think of what we could add to this salad to make it part of a complete meal? So when we think of a complete meal, we're thinking we want a fruit, a vegetable, a protein, a grain, and a dairy source. So any good ideas anyone can think of? Absolutely, Z. I think nuts would be an excellent addition as our protein source. I would love to add like slivered almonds or walnuts to this salad. Gabby wrote couscous would be a great addition. Absolutely, maybe couscous or quinoa. I completely agree. What about a dairy? What could we add to it? Ooh, Reed Family of Five wrote, we could add grapes or shredded cheese. Absolutely. I even think a cheese like goat cheese would be great, or if we can find a nice low-fat mozzarella cheese or some shredded mozzarella cheese. And so we in that case, we would have completed the meal. We'd be adding nuts as our protein, some cheese as our dairy, and either couscous or quinoa as our green. Okay, so we have our sliced strawberries. Mixing it up again, and it's like a really nice, sweet and savory salad. And last but not least, I'll add my pear. So I'm going to just cut my pear in half, take out any pits around the core, laying on its flat side and cutting nice thin slices. I prefer my pears to be a little bit more ripened, a little bit softer, but again, for something like this, it's preference, and they can be eaten a little bit harder. It's just how I prefer them. So I'm just going to add them right into the salad, thin sliced, and then you can add a little bit of salt and pepper, just a little, just to taste. And you'd want to use the full pear, but I just don't want to take up too much of your time having you watch me slice the pear, but just so you get an idea of how this all looks when it's completed. Let me give you a preview. Oh, thank you, Z. You love watching me prepare. So this beautiful salad right here, I highly recommend. Yeah, absolutely. Watching someone prepare helps you visualize, and it helps you to remember what to prepare when the time comes. Maybe you're at a farmer's market or the grocery store and you're trying to think of, maybe you want to try something a little bit different, and watching these type of recipe demos helps you to think of those creative things that you can prepare. So in case you're not familiar, I know that this recipe is supposed to be made with Tatsoi, and I said it wasn't available today. But just to speak a little bit on it, Tatsoi contains vitamin A, which is really great for healthy eyes and skin. It's often eaten in raw salads and is part of most bagged mixed salad greens. So it's actually a great substitute for spinach. If you come across it and you're hoping to prepare something with spinach, you can actually prepare it with tatsoi instead. And of course, just like any other produce, you'd always want to rinse it before using it. And just to touch back on the topic of how to store it, you'd want to wrap these unwashed greens in a damp paper towel and keep them in the refrigerator for about 3 to 4 days so that it'll taste the best. Of course, when you are choosing tatsoi, you'd want to choose green leaves with no bruises, holes, cuts, or yellowing. And they should be fresh and lively looking and not wilted. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments? Anything similar that you prepare at home? Very quiet today. We get days where everyone's really very comfortable chatting, and other days where everyone's feeling a little more quiet.
I
know
agree
it's a
with Z. We
beautiful
love
day
just
outside.
watching you prepare.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll keep on slicing. But I don't want to keep, oh, Z, you're hungry now. Yeah. Hopefully you have some of these ingredients at home, or maybe ingredients for one of the other recipes that we've prepared before. Thank you. Great. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Family of 5 wrote, we appreciate your guidance, and Gabby wrote, great inspiration. Absolutely. That's what we're here for, is not necessarily, yes, we do always learn new things every day, but maybe it's not even always about learning something new. It's maybe about reminding ourselves of the things that we already know, and just, hey, that's something, oh, I forgot that I make that. I forgot why that's so good for me, or how easy that is to prepare. So it's really good to just get together and brainstorm sometimes. Yeah, being important. Jackie wrote, being together, that is important too in our quest for health. Mary wrote, she loves fruits and vegetables because it seems like the less prep she does, the more they shine. Yeah, and yeah, just of course having them on their own is always a great idea, but it's really nice to add fresh fruits and veggies to our meals that we prepare to give it a little bit more flavor, to encourage us maybe to eat some more of those leafy greens, for example, that we may not think to have as often, but when they're combined with the right things, we encourage ourselves to eat them a little bit more. And I know that for me, having these leafy greens combined with like a sweeter salad like this, natural sweetness, would definitely encourage me to eat more of these type of leafy greens.
Hi, everyone. This is Z from Yonkers Public Library. Thanks so much to Sally Pinto and Alexis and Barbara from Newark. Thank you to our community partners, WJCS, the City of Yonkers Office for the Aging, Westchester County Legislator Ruth Walter, Friends of Crestwood Library, and Yonkers Public Library for making this phenomenal partnership. And we thank each and every one of you for being part of our wellness community. Be well, stay well.